So tonight, I'm going to try and make it a little bit more of a discussion, a question and answers, and see, how we do with that. The topic tonight is talking about Buddha nature, what our Buddha nature is. What is Buddha nature? So if you had a chance to read the text, I'll give you a couple clues to what Kempo was thinking. So we'll talk about that. We should start by doing our opening prayers. So if, let's see, who hasn't done this in a while? Michael, I think you did this a while ago. Or did you do this recently?
In a different domain, yes.
A different domain?
Yeah.
Okay. What does that mean?
I think it was a different teaching session.
Oh, okay.
I thought you did it last week.
I did too.
Oh, we did it last week?
I guess that was it then.
I guess that was it.
Michael's always in a different domain.
Is there anyone who hasn't done it that would like to volunteer for it?
Dr. Jones hasn't done it, huh?
No, Dr. Jones is not nearly ready yet.
Okay.
Okay.
But thanks for the thought.
Okay.
All the faith.
Kate T, how about you?
No, I can't do it tonight. Sorry.
Okay. All right, we're getting down to it, huh? All right, Tom?
By Kate D. Would you like to do it, Kate? Kate D?
I shall do that, yes. Let me, one moment, please, one moment. Yeah, unplug my. For whatever reason, my freezer is extremely loud, so I don't want to.
So it's an important part of our practice to set our motivation. So we set our motivation through these prayers, which are remembrances as to why we are doing this. And fundamentally, we're doing this for the benefit of the enlightenment of all beings. That if we can purify ourselves, then other beings, then we can help the other beings to be purified, other beings to find their true nature and so on. So this we need to remind ourselves. So we recite these prayers. So Kate, if you're going to do this, then please recite each one in English. We'll just do English tonight.
Oh,
So
could I do the third one in Tibetan? Would that be okay?
If you'd like, if you really want to.
So
sure.
I could practice. Yes.
Okay, sure. Okay.
And it's the altruistic motivation. Is that the only prayer that I'm doing, or should I continue?
We're going to start with the altruistic motivation and go to the four measurable thoughts, or the four measurable qualities on page 6.
Should I do that as well, or just stop at the motivation?
Oh, you do all those from the first one to the fourth, four measurable qualities. So we take turns doing this.
I just want to make sure. The 4 ways of turning the mind.
Now we're on page number 1, the altruistic motivation. Do you have the prayer book?
Yes, I do.
So anybody who needs this prayer book, send me a message and I will, with your address, your mailing address, and I'll mail it to you.
Okay.
Okay.
All mothers, sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. All mothers, sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. Dangla Tawar Jepara, no par Jepagang Tarpa, Dang Ta Jekin Pat Paru, Chopar Jepa Tam Cheki, So Jepa Manam Kadang, Yampa Semchin Tam Che Dwadang Den, Dongna Dare Nudu Lana Mepayang, Dang Par Zopa Yang Churin Po Dam Parja. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. And then it goes into the long refuge prayer. Is that correct? All sentient beings, limitless as the sky, take refuge in the glorious kind Lama Vajradhara, the embodiment of the body, speech, mind qualities, and activities of the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 times. Source of the 84,000 categories of the teaching of Lord of the Sanghas. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. All sentient beings, limitless as the sky, take refuge in the glorious kind Lama Vajradhara, the embodiment of the body, speech, mind, qualities, and activities of the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, source of the 84,000 categories of teaching and Lord of the Sanghas. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas and of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Namke Tedon Nepa Shamtin Tache Chochu Dusunge Deshin Shapa Doche Kiku Santo Yongten Trinle Tamshe Kenyor Wakupa Keki Pongpo Tom Traga Chosagi Sashi Junne Pakpe Kintan Cheki Nata Denchin Sharan Vapar Shipa Palam Lama Dapa Yamla Gyapsu Tyo Yedam Kyakor Jila Sona La Gyapsu Tyo Dampe Shona Maki Suchio Pape Gedam Nala Gyapsu Tyo Okya Chokya Samatesh Toshiki Sandaten Panam Lakya Sujio. Cultivating the mind of enlightenment. Is that correct or no? Okay. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma and likewise in the assemblies of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the precious Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Changchu Nyapar Geki Barsange Nama Kyab Suchi Chodang Chachu Simpai Syongba Layan Disin Kyab Suchi Chachu Simpala Paladar Dedrarin Shine Patar Deshindrola Pinton Du Shap Chusini Kishjishin Deshindunila Pala Rimpa Shundu Lapagi. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge in until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all beings. Sangye Shodang Sokya Soki Nomnala Chachu Bardu Dani Kyapsuti Tanji Tinsorgi Asonangi Jola Pinche Sangye Tropashu. For measurables. Okay. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kalang nyepa senchin tamche dewa da dewe yodang tempar jashik domnadang dimalgi yadar da wargyachik dum na me pe dewa dan medra warjurchik nerin chadang nidan dawe domnam la nepar jurchik. Whatever,
That's good.
whatever. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. You did a
Done.
good job.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
I
That's
think-
very kind.
I think you had a different book than we use, but that's okay. We use this book. This is our Buddhism 101 book that we use. So there's slightly different translations for the different prayers. So it would be good if we all have the same book. So like I said, if you don't have that book, just let me know and I will mail it to you so that we all have the same book.
I apologize. I was doing the prayers from the practice of taking refuge. That I thought I had the right one printed out. I apologize. It's my
That's
fault.
okay. That's okay. No
Sorry.
problem. It's fine. So tonight we're talking about Buddha nature. So this is chapter 9 of the book called Learning Buddhism, which was written by Khenpo Samdup, who is the spiritual director of the Drikung Dharma Surya Center. So this is the center in Fairfax, Virginia. And this book, Learning Buddhism, was a book that was requested by Garchen Rinpoche that Khenpo should write this book so that people would have a focus on which to all look to perform their studies, to have it for their studies and so on. So once he did this, then he's done about 7 or 8 other books that are all parts of the stages of learning about Buddhism. So the Learning Buddhism book is no longer in print right now. They're going to do another printing of it, a new edition, but we do have the text files. So I send out each one of the text files in a time for everybody to read it before we have a teaching, so you can familiarize yourself with it. The chapters aren't long chapters, so we'll continue like that, and then we have some other things to talk about later on. But right now, we're going to continue now talking with Buddha nature. So what is Buddha nature? So we have to understand Buddha nature. To understand Buddha nature, we need to understand human nature. To understand human nature, we need to know what animal nature is. And to understand animal nature, we need to understand the different animals. We need to understand something about insects. We need to understand something about fish, animals that live in the sea, animals that live underground, and so on. And so to help us understand what this nature is, we have to understand that it's what is the essence of all these beings, and is this Buddha nature that is the essence of all these things. But all these things then have their own nature, which is compounded on top of the Buddha nature. The Buddha nature is something that runs through all these things, that is pure and is unstained. We say that it is so pure that it's unborn. That once we are born with the compounded nature of whatever life form we take. So if we take an animal, if we take a human being, if we take a fish, if we take an insect, whatever it is, each of those beings has a nature about it that kind of preoccupies, at least with the human being, preoccupies it, so it's not thinking about what its true nature is, what its Buddha nature is. Do you think that a dog or a cat, our pets that we have at home, do you think that they're thinking about what their nature is? Do you think that they recognize that they're a dog and somewhere else in the house maybe is a cat, or there's some fish around and they're thinking about those things? Not likely. We don't think so. But human beings do have that ability to be able to think about, all these different things, and to think about what they are. So in some ways, we could say that some of these animals and so on are simpler. These fish are simpler. These dogs, these pets that we have are simpler. And they're in some ways, we could say they're closer to that true nature, because they're not trying to be something else that they're not. Human beings are always trying to be something else that they're not. We're always trying to give ourselves the idea that we know what is going on. A dog doesn't know what's going on and really doesn't care what's going on. Neither does a fish, or neither does a fly, or a cockroach, or any of the insects that you might think about. They're perfectly content doing what they normally do. And they're not thinking about anything else except maybe where their next meal comes from. And they're looking for that constantly. So we are animals too. We come out of that. But we have this intelligent brain. We have this ability to be able to think, and to be able to transpose things, to interpret things, and so on. And this becomes our strength, but it also becomes our weakness. It's our strength because we built up these great civilizations. We built up these great technologies. We built up this great lifestyle that we all have and we share, and so on, and seems very exciting. But this, in many cases, has come at the expense of that simple true nature that we have, because all these things that we build up and so on are so much fun. They take up so much time. They give us so much satisfaction as to who we are, importance as to who we are, that we forget what this true essence of who we are has been lost, has been suppressed, has been covered up. And so in that way, we have defiled ourselves, because this true nature is our purest essence, is our purest form, our purest part of our being. So what we're trying to do is to recognize that, what that Buddha nature is, what that true nature is. We call it, in this tradition, we call it Buddha nature. Buddha is a Sanskrit word that means awakened one, the awakened one. Goes back, the Sanskrit language goes back, 3,000 years or something. And so many of the teaching, all the teachings that the Buddha gave, who was a being who lived 2,600 years ago, he taught in the Sanskrit language. So many of the words that we use in our practices that we have to get familiar with in Buddhism 101 are these Sanskrit words. So Buddha is, of course, at the core of this, and it means the awakened one. So for us as human beings, we're all involved with all these things that we do, and we think that we're awakened to what's all going around us, but we are not awakened to what is the core of who we are, our true nature, our Buddha nature. And that's what we're trying to find, is to awake ourselves to do that, to be able to recognize that, to be able to see that. That's what we're trying to do. And we call that enlightenment. So this enlightenment means that we see everything, we understand everything. The wisdom that comes from enlightenment is like being in a dark room, and all of a sudden you light a candle, and now you can see everything that's in this dark room. You have this wisdom to see everything. So in our state, in our human state, we think we see everything as it is in its true nature, but we only see a part of it. We don't understand what the essence of this is. So therefore, we go off with all these interpretations of what we think our life is and what we need to do, what's important, and so on. These things that we do have a relevance. They are important. We do have families. We do have relationships with people. We do have to work in society and share with other beings and so on. We do have to do that. But the way in which we do that, though, needs to be rooted in this true nature that we have, this pure nature that is easily covered up with our emotions, with our desires, our attachments, our hatreds, all these different things that human beings fixate to. Animals don't fixate to these things. Insects don't fixate to these things. Buddhas don't fixate to these things. Human beings fixate to these things. So we need to be able to have a way to be able to understand how this happens. The Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, who was a human being who lived 2,600 years ago, had the ability to be able to come to this realization of being able to see this true nature, to be able to recognize this true nature. As he did this and he began to teach, one of the first things he taught was we all have this Buddha nature, that he wasn't special in the regard that he only had this Buddha nature. Everybody has it. The difference was that he was a Buddha. In other words, he was an awakened one who recognized what that true nature is. And in doing that, also recognize what this human nature is that is blocking us from being able to recognize this Buddha nature. So his genius was that he was able to devise this system that we follow today. The system is called Buddhism, is called the Dharma teachings and the Dharma practices. The Dharma is a pathway. So there's many different pathways, there's many different dharmas, but the Buddha Dharma is the pathway to understand what it is to be a human being. And by understanding what it is to be a human being, we begin to rest that. We begin to not chase after that. You know, being a human being has many great things about it, but it also has these hidden defilements, these hidden traps that we get caught in. We get caught in our ignorance, which is the lies that we tell. You know, we don't know a lot of things, but we make up these stories that we do. We create these delusions for ourselves that we know what we're doing and who we are. So this is part of our ego. This is part of our persona. This is how we're able to function in a world with each other and so on, and to have an identity. You know, but this identity is based on just some kind of a story that we have bought into. Maybe it was something that was given to us by our parents. You know, they first taught us how to live in the family, and they created this story of who we are, you know, who this family is and so on. And then we go to school and we have our friends, and maybe our friends don't like our story, so we got to modify it a little bit so they'll be our friends. So we kind of change it a little bit. And if you know anything about telling lies, it's very easy to get caught up in a web of lies and you know, well, how did I tell this to so and so, you know, and it's very easy for us to do that. This is indicative of our ignorance, that we think that we can know everything that's going on, when in reality, there's a lot that we don't know. And by thinking that we do know, we complicate things because we're telling all these lies, this web that we have all around ourselves. We also have hatreds. We also have attachments. We also have jealousies. We also have pridefulness, which are all part of these this web that we weave for ourselves as human beings that develops our human nature. And we get lost in all that stuff, in our attachments, in our aversions, our hatreds, our jealousies, and our pridefulness. So we can go through lifetimes not being aware of what our true essence is, what that Buddha nature, what it is to be an awakened being, what it is to be a whole being, a complete human being. So in the Buddhism, like I said before, the Buddha realized this, created a system for us by which we can look at ourselves and see that what we are is compounded. Everything is compounded, one on another thing. Our physical body is compounded. You know, we look at our hand and we say, oh, this is my hand and everything, and it's got this skin, but we don't see anything that's below that. But if we were able to take a knife and open it up, we would see tissues, we would see muscles, we would see tendons, we would see blood, we would see bones, we would see all these things and so on. And so we're part of all that. But then if we looked a little deeper into those tissues and so on, we would see that there's all these kinds of molecules that are all aligned up and so on, that are making up these different parts of our physical body. And then if we looked a little deeper into those molecules, we would see all these atoms. And then we'd see deeper in the atoms, we would see that the atoms are made up of subatomic particles. And now they're getting down deeper and deeper, and they're seeing, you know, things that, were only, couldn't even be conceptualized 50 years ago or something. They're always looking for something new. What we also see is there's a lot of space in between all of this. There's a lot of energy that is all in between all of this and so on. And we're coming to understand this. And there is a correlation between this physicality and our spirituality. At the same time, we also have this intellect. So we have this compounded physical nature. We have this compounded intellectual nature. And all the different things that we're able to do, the things that we can do around our homes, the things that we can do in our work, the things that we can do, going to school, the things that we can do driving a car, all the everyday things that we do. The things that we can do, manipulating other people or having other people manipulate us and so on. And these are all part of our compounded intelligence, our brain power. And within this then comes our emotions. And then so much of what we are doing are our emotions moving in one direction or another because we feel good. It makes us feel good. It gives us a sense of satisfaction. It gives us a sense of identity, a sense of being. So we follow these emotions, and they're just compounded things that we really don't understand. But we need a way to be able to understand them. There is science now, especially in the West, that is examining these things, and psychiatry and psychology and all these kinds of things, so sociology and all these kinds of things. And it seems that every time there's a discovery, there's 20 more questions that arise out of that discovery, whether it's psychology or something. Psychology seems as though it's kind of pulling back all the things that it might have thought of itself, 20 or 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's pulling back, saying, we don't do that anymore. We're just watching now. If you read any psychology magazines or anything like that, they're kind of pulling back. Psychiatry is kind of pulling back. Psychiatry's gotten to the point where, well, we'll just dispense the medicine for you. We're not going to try and figure you out. We'll let the psychologists do that. And the psychologists are saying, well, I don't know either. I don't know what to do. But the spiritualists, though, the Buddhists in particular, are saying, well, maybe there's something that we can talk about. Maybe there's something that links together our physicality along with our intellectuality, along with our spirituality. Maybe there's something there, and that's what we need to pull together. If we look at society right now, we see that there is this huge schism that is going through society right now, that we're all living through right now. And it doesn't matter whether we're Americans or not. It doesn't matter whether we live on this part of the globe or the other part of the globe. It seems to be everywhere. There seems to be something going on right now that's been going on that is driving people apart instead of bringing people together. In the not too distant past, we can see that people seemed to be coming together. And there was this movement, I'm old enough, when during the 60s and the 70s, there was this great thing, to be bringing people together, and lots of things were happening to do that and so on. But lately things have been pulled apart again. So my point in saying this is, along with this, many people will say that the missing ingredient that has allowed this to be pulled apart is the lack of spirituality. Maybe you've heard the expression that we're spiritually bankrupt. And because of this, these values of coming together have been wasted, have been just left out in the cold, so to speak. It's important to understand what the word spirit means. What does it mean to be spiritual? And if you look it up in the dictionary, there's several different definitions. But one definition, maybe 3 or 4 down, is going to be connection. that spiritual means connection. And the connection is that all people, all beings, not just human beings, but all life has this spirituality about it, has this connection about all of it. Maybe it's this atomic connection. Maybe it's down to the subatomic, but it's also the energy that is all around all that matter, because all those, all those particles and so on, all that matter is concrete stuff, but there's all this energy in there. And if you can take that matter and you can move it at twice the speed of light, then all of a sudden this energy will be released. And then you have this great power. This was Einstein's theory, E equals mc squared. If you can take matter and make it move twice the speed of light, the energy will be released out of that matter. So, but that is what they call the theory of relativity, of matter and energy. Within that is the spirituality, is the connection of all this coming together. Now, this is a bit abstract, I think, for all of us. And for us to be able to really apprehend what this means so that we can contemplate this, we can think about this, we need to be able to rise above all the human nature stuff, our physicality. We need to rise above our intellectualism. Our physicality is what keeps us moving all the time. You know, we're fidgeting, we're sitting here listening and talking, and we're fidgeting about and so on like that. You know, our mind is jumping around. Everything that I say, you're making, associations with. You're trying to understand, well, what am I saying? And you're thinking of it in some way. So your mind is jumping around and so on. What we need to be able to do is to be able to rest our physical body, rest our intellectual mind, and be able to bring the energy that we're using for our physical body, to bring the energy that we're using for our monkey mind jumping around, bring that together to be able to open up our truth center. Our truth center is in our heart center. It's not the fleshy part of our heart, but it's in the center of our body. And we've had this truth center since the moment we were conceived. And we keep this truth center throughout our entire lives until we die, till our body stops working. And then that truth center, that energy, that spirituality is released, is ejected. So we talk a lot about that in some other classes that we have in Buddhism 101. But right now, we're just trying to understand this spirituality, because the spirituality, you see, goes to this Buddha nature, this awakened nature that we have of being able to understand all these things. When we're able to harness the physical energy, the intellectual energy, and be able to open up this truth center, we begin to experience something that is beyond our comprehension. It is something that is experienced in a place, in a space that is transcendent of all our fabrications, of all the delusions that we say, all the emotions that we have. This space, this place is through meditation. This is the technique. This is how we get there, through meditation. Some people would say, well, that's prayer. And prayer certainly is a technique to be able to bring our attention one-pointedly into being able to focus, But prayer has a connotation, at least in my view of it, and we can talk about this shortly, is that prayer, is kind of like supplicating, beseeching, either ourselves or something outside of ourselves to intercede, to be able to deliver us from confusion or inabilities or lack of resources or whatever. We're praying for this to come. We want something to come and relieve us of whatever missing things that we have, or too much of something or not enough of something. But meditation is quieting the intellectual mind, quieting the physical body. And what we find when we truly have meditation arises up by itself. The experience of that meditation rises up. The wisdom of that meditation rises up. And we begin to have heart thoughts. Heart thoughts. These are brain thoughts. These are heart thoughts, spiritual thoughts. And it goes beyond language. It doesn't matter whether we speak English or we speak Spanish or we speak any other language on the planet. It doesn't matter. When we begin to have these meditative experiences, they come to us in a way that is beyond our communication ability. But we experience these. People who have had this experience, when they come back, from that experience of just simply sitting, but just being able to focus and transcending their intellectual mind or physical mind, the thing that they always say is, I can't explain it, but all I know is I love everybody and everybody loves me. And this becomes like the least common denominator of what this experience is. And it's transformative, because what it's showing us is this spirituality, this connection, that we're all connected in this way, in this spiritual way, so we begin to piece that together, and we begin to change ourselves, because now our physical body has a new meaning to it, and our intellectualism has a new meaning to it, that we want to be able to facilitate this spirituality more and more often, and maybe all the time. So to do that, we got to have a healthy body and we got to have a healthy mind. So it changes our lifestyle that we can do that. Plus, we simplify things. We don't need as much stuff. The lies that we were telling before, the delusions that we were telling ourselves before, now become revealed. We begin to see ourselves as simple beings who have complicated themselves. And we've been chasing after those complications over and over and over and over again. It's that Buddha nature that is the simple part of our lives. We make it very complicated. Human beings make it very complicated. So this is what we're trying to understand. We can look at this in different ways. It doesn't have to be as what we call Buddha nature. It could be Christ nature. It could be the nature of Yahweh. It could be the nature of Mohammed. It could be the nature of Krishna, Brahma, Vishnu. It could be many different things. Many different traditions, many different lands have talked about this. This is not exclusively Buddhism. Buddhism is a pathway, is a system to be able to look at this, to be able to perform this investigation and so on. the thing that's good about Buddhism is it's getting more and more accessible, and it's got huge amount of writings, huge amount of books, and so on. It's got a lot of teachers, more and more teachers all the time, and so on. And it really appeals to those who are evolved. It's not for the people who are superstitious. It's not for the people who are easily swayed, for an hour or two once a week, to come together and get this nobility all of a sudden, and then they can leave and go out and go back to doing the things that they do and so on. This is for people who really want to change their lives. They've tried a lot of different things. They might be rich or poor, they might be men or women, they might be young or old, but they're evolved. They've had some realizations, they've had some understandings. They've had some exhaustion of things that this doesn't really work. This was one of those lies that I bought into, or I created it for myself, or I invested my time and energy into this lie, that this is the way that we have to do it. So the Buddhism articulates all this very, very well for us, and that's its strength. And like I said, it attracts many evolved people of all different traditions who have come from, being scientists, being religious people, being any other walk of life that you can imagine. All can be Buddhists. All can do that. And in Buddhism, and by being a Buddhist, doesn't have anything to do, or rather, I shouldn't say it that way, but doesn't conflict if you have religious connections with a particular tradition. Buddhism, therefore, is not a religion. Buddhism is a philosophy. It's a way to live. In a religion, if you look religion up in the dictionary, it's usually stated that it's man's relationship with a supreme being. So the religions you can see has that common thread that there is a supreme being, and sometimes there might be many, in the pantheons of gods and so on like that. There are some religions who say, oh, there's one supreme being, and my supreme being is better than your supreme being, or the only one, or something like that. And there's these conflicts that go on between people who like to argue about things like that. Grant, I think your microphone is on and you're rattling around making some noises there. Could you mute your microphone, please?
Yes.
Thank you. But Buddhism itself is a philosophy. It's about ourselves and being able to recognize ourselves as being part of all selves, of being part of the spiritual community of beings. And through that, we come to being awakened, to be able to recognize that we are part of something, but we're a very, very, very small part of something that is beyond our comprehension. But because we are part of that is beyond our comprehension, we're part of this huge thing too. But the more that we fixate to all these ideas, the more that our ego gets fed. And then we start that cycle over again of creating these delusions for ourselves. So the point here is that we say that the essence of this Buddha nature is something that is beyond our comprehension. It is something that is beyond concept. It is non-conceptual. It is expressionless. We can't say what it is. We can't really draw it, but it would be in our drawings. It would be in our art. You can't say what it is, but you could make music that speaks of it. You could write things, and in the writing can be meaning in between the words and the sentences and the pages that conveys a meaning. So that spiritualism is locked, or not locked, but it's within the things that we do. We are spiritual beings, whether we want to be or not. We're spiritual beings, whether we recognize it or not. We are Buddhas, whether we recognize it or not. Just like we are Christ, just like we are Yahweh, Jehovah, like we're all these different beings that we imagine are such wonderful beings, and so we're all of that. So this Buddha nature is becoming aware of that, seeing this common thread, this illustration. I'm using words, I'm using conceptual ideas to try and have a conversation with you. But I hope that you can recognize that what I'm trying to describe is an experience. And maybe we've all had this experience. You don't have to be a great meditator. You don't have to go to Tibet or India or anywhere else to have this experience. You can have it right where you're sitting right now. You can have it at any age. You could have it at the age of 5 years old. You could have it at the age of 55 years old, or anything else. And when you have that experience, it's like a flash, it comes and it goes as quickly as it comes, but it can be transformative, and it's something that you might remember. And sometimes it's there, you had these experiences, but they've been suppressed because of the ego and all the other things that I first talked about. But then when we quiet our mind, when we sit and we quiet our mind, we connect with those old thoughts. We connect with those old remembrances and so on. And then things come up, that wisdom, we call it wisdom. These wisdom experiences come up and so on. So this is the essence of what we're trying to do, to recognize our Buddha nature, to become spiritual beings, realized spiritual beings. It's a process to do it. We can have these glimpses, but the glimpses come and they go. Our task is to make them a part of us, a living part of us, where it's as much a part of us as our breath. And so to recognize that is what we do. The Buddhism, the Dharma helps us to understand that. So now I open it up and let people ask some questions or make some comments about what they think about what I just said.
Yeah, this is Grant. The way I've thought about it in the past is like this primordial nature, and I guess
Please define
ima-
primordial.
okay, and the way how I'm defining it in my mind is that I'm a human being. It's like 200,000 years ago, and there's no language, and without this language, I can't really have, I'm, at least in my own mind, the way I imagine it, all my thoughts have disappeared because my thoughts are mostly language based, and you're living in this very mindful, natural state, and you're much more aware of consciousness. You're aware of the senses, the sensations, and you're aware of everything but thoughts, because once again, I put thoughts is so much intertwined with language. So before language, you're this very natural state. And, that's the state that I try to reach when I'm doing my meditation, where I'm, not thinking, I'm just relaxing and being this observer of consciousness.
Okay. So would you say no thought? Was that what you were trying? Is that the goal of your meditation?
No, I'm not saying not for me, because of, I have language, so I'm just observing the thoughts and not trying to
Okay.
be
Do you feel
captured
like,
by the thought. But I'm thinking, if it was 200,000 years ago and there's no language, what kind of thoughts do you have if there's no language? It seems like thoughts are going to be at a very minimal level.
okay. All right, we'll come back to that, I'm sure. Anybody else have a thought about this?
I like Grant's use of the word primordial. I see primordial.
Primordial mean.
I see primordial as being out of sentience. Something that's primordial is in existence before conceptual thought, before humans were able to develop the structures that we see as phenomenal and form. I think primordial, that which is primordial, especially our primordial nature or our natural mind, exists outside of the constructs like time, and outside of our ideas of before and after, and outside of our dimension in many ways.
So
Lance?
yes,
Okay. Go
yes.
ahead.
William, go ahead.
Well, Lance, I'm kind of scientific. And according to the science, as human beings, as the humanoids that we are now, we came with everything that we've got now. And we did have voices, we did have thoughts, we did have all of that things. So we are no better than our ancestors when we were first, I don't know how we got to be the way we are, but the other beings that were humanoid up until that point in time, where like we're fellows that are in Europe, and I forget what they call them.
What, Neanderthals?
Neanderthals, correct. The Neanderthals even had communication, and somehow we went. There were like three different humanoids on the planet then, and now there's just whatever we are, and we were full blown when we were um, you know, we were ready to go when we were born, or when we became, however the DNA went to get human beings, we were the full-blown thing.
So what do you think about the spirituality of this?
Well, spirituality, if you look back, what did you call those people out back?
Neanderthals?
The Neanderthals had spiritual things in caves. Spirit, you know, writings, or not writing, but paintings and things like that. So I kind of think spirituality has been with us all the way. I mean, consciousness and spirituality has been with us all the way.
Do you think they're the same thing?
Do I think that spirituality and no, I think spirituality is a modality where your consciousness is an awareness, and spirituality is a modality that comes along with the awareness.
Okay. All right. Let's let some other people speak. Anybody else have something to add to that? Vanessa?
Yes, for me, it's Vanessa. When you speak about the Buddha nature, for me, it's I understand it as kind of the common link amongst all of us humans, and where we are able to connect. And so meditation or meditative practice get us closer to, or take down that ego as you described, so that we can connect along that common humanity in a way. So that's a little bit the way I relate to it when I think about Buddha nature.
Do you think of it as already being there, or is it something that has to be developed?
I think it's there in everybody, but as you said, whether it's your ego or other things, you're not necessarily aware of it. But I think everybody has experiences where we feel connected to each other, and it can be a lot of different experiences. And in those moments, I think we feel it. We're not necessarily aware of it, but through practice, talking about Buddhism, for me, like learning about Buddhism or meditation helps me connect to that. And I wouldn't say understand it, it's more connecting than necessarily understanding and analyzing it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Somebody else, please.
I mean, I'll make another comment. I mean, a lot of people talk about like this experience when you're on like psychedelics, like you've taken mushrooms or something like that, and your ego is completely taken down, and you have absolutely no ego. That is sort of analogous to this Buddha nature.
Yeah, I think that's true. And there's a lot of work being done on that, with in medical research for people who are, having trouble with their ego defenses and so on like that, and have addiction problems and so on. Yeah, so there's a lot of work being done with psychedelics like that, and that's something we can talk about. So yeah, I agree with that. But the thing with psychedelics is that they are in control. The psychedelics are in control. With meditation, we are in control. The meditator is in control. And that's a big difference. Ed, what do you think?
Well, I've been thinking about something you said earlier about prayer often being focused on supplication.
Mm-hmm.
And in my Protestant Christian tradition that I've been nurtured in all my life, and I'm not ready to cast aside. Nonetheless, I think there's not all prayer has to focus on supplication, but a lot of it does. And I think of the church services in which I've been a part of for years that were so much of a traditional Protestant church service. I mean, that's just the orientation that I'm exposed to. There's a whole lot of asking for forgiveness, and there's a whole lot of asking a supreme being for things. And in a sense, those are both egotistical pursuits. And what I'm gradually hearing, feeling, sensing about Buddhism is the effort to get the ego and all of its accompanying distractions and diversions out of the way so that I can experience what is true directly. I mean, without going through the process of involving a supreme being. In this, so what Buddhism seems to be leading me toward, or has led others toward, is the effort to get the junk out of the way and be able to capitalize on the glimpses that I see when I get the junk out of the way, and make those and create the opportunity for more of those, and for them to expand and take hold. And as they do that, then I become less egotistical. I become less self-centered. I don't know. I'm doing this. I'm spelling this conversation in my head, which I'm not sure where it leads yet. But
So you're analyzing right now. Analyzing and evaluating.
Yeah, which in a way is the very thing we're trying to avoid. I mean, I'm conceptualizing.
Yeah, well, that's how we think. That's our intellectual process.
But I'm using tools that are being that you've warned us about, and Buddhism warns us about the overuse of, and yet I do that because that's what I do.
Well, that's right. And in the beginning, it sounds like a paradox.
Yeah, it does.
You know, so what everything that we're doing now is this intellectualization, this conversation that we're having. The other element to the Dharma is the practice, is the meditation.
Yeah.
And that's what's hard to do on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody's in their own room, their own environment. You got distractions going on and so on. And so it's really hard to do meditation with people who are unfamiliar with the meditation that we practice. What the next step would be to be able to get together in some way, when the COVID's over, the threat is over, and we can come together, and then we can really start working on our practices together. And then we're taking some of this intellectualization and we're putting it into practice. We're going to try and rest the body. We're going to try and rest the mind. We're going to try and bring the energy together and open up that true nature within ourselves. So that's the next big thing that we have to work on.
Well, the reason I wanted to participate in this activity that Michael invited me to, I don't know that I thought of it that way at the time. This is a couple of months ago. Was, oh, good, I can learn more intellectually about what Buddhism is.
Right.
And now what I'm finding out is the intellectualism is a trap. I guess I don't know.
That's right. We're trapped in our intellectualism. You're right. You're right.
So I don't know, Lance. You sort of got me in no man's land here.
Well, no, it's okay. It's okay. And just as a short anecdote, I was listening to, some people talking on a news program or something, or maybe it was on the radio, and they were talking about the adjustments that people are making now or are about to make to go back into what we would consider our normal lives. Because now we've all spent a year or so divorcing ourselves because we had to from the regimen of beat the clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
And having to do things, because of certain people and staying away from certain people. All this has gone away, and we've had more leisure time than we probably have had, in years and years and years before this past year. And now, what are we going to take with us into when we go back to work? Are we going to want to go back into that beat the clock mentality?
What can we take in the reentry that will help us after the reentry?
Exactly. And this is exactly what meditation is.
Yeah.
We're able to rest ourselves for a period of time, and we do it every day. And then we see that there's a transformation that happens slowly. And we say, I like the transformation and I want it to be a vital part of my lives. And therefore, I'm going to incorporate this, and I'm going to start simplifying. I'm going to start cutting out some stuff that I used to chase all the time.
Well, I appreciate your patience and others and tolerating my groping through all this. But
no. And frankly, Ed, I mean, you've been with us for about what, 6 months, 7 months, something like that?
Oh, just 2 or 3, but
has it only been that long? It seems forever.
Since the first week in January.
Is that okay? All right. So, but nevertheless,
and I really loved the question, and I just, for my own benefit, really enjoyed listening to you and Lance dialogue on that. That was helpful.
Okay, good. All right. So tell me, what do you think, Zara, about this question of Buddha nature? We're talking about Buddha nature. We're talking about primordial consciousness. We're talking about prayer and supplication. These are some of the simple words that we've been saying that need some explanation or some personal experiences. What do you think, Zara?
Could you do me a favor? I only heard the end. My audio cut out. Could you repeat the question? My audio literally went out.
I was simply asking what your thoughts are on this conversation that we're having. What about the Buddha nature, the way I tried to explain it earlier, and what are your thoughts on this?
The movie, the Outer Worlds movie.
Yes.
That you played, and I have that on my weekend to-do list, is to watch that, rewatch that. That that really resonated with me as like watching it visually, like watching this logical sort of sequence of explaining just existence and stuff. And then it's just augmented these conversations and our discussion on the basics and what we're trying to figure out, right, about ourselves, the journey. Um, it logically and intellectually sort of, I think, as Ed was just saying, or Grant, sorry, I think it was Ed, like there is a tendency for me to intellectualize all of this. But now I've been doing the meditation practice now for, I want to say 8 months. And I feel like I'm just at the tip of the iceberg for, I think like you just said it so beautifully when I was listening to you and Ed, like where you're like, I'm now so drawn to like stillness and quiet, like I seek it now to be quiet and still. And I think you again just illustrated it so beautifully where you're like you start to become happy with less. Um like, and that could look very different, right? It could be like very material things, you don't need them as much anymore or crave certain things. But that for me, like that all like sort of has been happening for me. Like I see it incrementally happening in my life in the past year, where now
You locked up there.
process coming
I'm
back.
sorry, you locked up there. But you said you're seeing it now. You're beginning to have some realization. You're beginning to have an understanding, some glimpses of this.
Yeah, yes. And like I for example, one thing for me is like I actually look forward to these connections with you all. And before, like 2 years ago, I was like, I'm going out on you know what I mean? I'm going out Monday night or I'm going out Saturday night. But now I actually crave this. It's like it feels so good inside. And that's a huge distinct change where I'm like, I've got a Monday evening appointment for my spirit and my soul. And it just feels so good. And so like I notice incrementally things now like a year ago. And I think it's hard at times if you compare day to day, you don't see the changes. But if you actually look back at your life, like, and I'm sure you've gone through this where you're like 20, 30 years ago, and then now you can see the huge change. I think day to day, you don't realize the progress you're making. It's kind of like when you weigh yourself on the scale, you're only going to lose like half a pound a week. But after like a year, you're like, oh, I lost 10 pounds. For slow, steady progress. And I think that's sort of the journey and that I've determined or that I believe is happening. It's just slow incremental progress with every day is just a little bit better. And that's great.
Very good. Thank you. Rebecca, you're always so thoughtful and please share something.
No, you're
with
going to
us.
hate me. I struggle when we get into the conversation of Buddhism as related to other religions as opposed to philosophies. There are times when I think to myself, okay, I'm in, and then there are times that I go, nope, I'm not. And it's this conversation around religion that always kind of, I don't know, sets me back. All right, so wait, a little bit of background. So I grew up a nice Protestant girl and became Jewish by choice as an adult. And so I'm an active member of a faith community. And comparing this with that to me is like comparing oranges with my Subaru. They don't even occupy the same space. And I feel in a lot of ways like this is more truthful and that is more comforting, right? And, I could go on a whole long riff about how maybe if I'd been a different person back 25 years ago, I might have been able to have a relationship with Jesus that was comforting and meant something to me, but I couldn't. And what I'm finding is that as I'm getting older, because, oh, God help me, I am closer to 60 than I am to 50. I find myself wanting to deal with what really is, not what I would like it to be or what makes me comfortable, right? I don't want a comforting story. I don't want something that makes me like go to sleep feeling like I'm all safe. I want to get real clear with the idea that I am, this sort of temporary energy formation that's sitting on a rock that's hurtling through space. And that's about as safe as I really am. I'd like to be comfortable with that before I die. And I'd like to be comfortable with the fact that when I die, my temporary energy pattern is just going to dissipate out into whatever the hell else the universe is going to do. And so this is a place where the, kind of aligning with other religions things is not maybe what I'm looking for. And that Buddha nature is the part of me that can sit and be comfortable with the fact that I'm sitting on a rock that's hurtling through space,
That's compelling. That's,
And I don't know you, but I love you, man.
no, but, well, I think I can identify with this.
Okay.
I don't want to give up Christianity, but I think Buddhism offers something.
Can you see similarities between Christianity and Buddhism? Christ and Buddha?
Yes, and I'm indebted to you for you frequently say, well, you frequently draw parallels to other traditions. And that's important. And I see parallels too. I mean, and I don't see them in conflict, which is something else you said early on. I mean, if I want to believe in a supreme being, I could still, that's okay with you. I mean, you're not going to throw me out for that. That's comforting. Parallels, I don't really even see much in conflict. What I see is some different points of emphasis. I don't know.
How about you, Rebecca? How do you square those two things? The Buddha and Jesus, or in Judaism they don't have an avatar in the same way.
Well, no, we do, right? I mean, we don't have a God made human, right? But we do have a God concept. I think in the first conversation I had with you, I was in the car driving. I told you that my basic tenet is the God that I don't believe in is Jewish. Right? I do not believe in that God. But it's the God I don't believe. I have a relationship of not believing in that particular God. I didn't have a relationship of there's just nothing there for me in the other ones. But I have to confess, I don't see any parallel. I don't see any connection. When you draw the connection between, Buddha and Yahweh, or whether you put it another way tonight, to use another common, I'm trying to say Jehoshaphat. I know that's not right. It started with a J.
Jehovah?
Jehovah. There you go.
Jehovah.
We would say Adonai. But that's, I don't see the connection.
But
Why? Well, I'm curious about that. Why? How would you define Yahweh or Jehovah or any of them, and how would you define Buddha then?
Well, so what you've presented to us, and what I know from my previous study of the Buddha, is a man who had an experience that gave him some freedom in how he lived his life and chose to share it with others. Right?
Irrespective of a spiritual being,
of a deity.
Of a deity.
Right? And almost definitional for Jews. There's a part in our liturgy where we actually rise up on our toes as we say it. We say kadosh, 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 and it means holy, holy, holy. But in that sense, holy just means other or different. The Hebrew just means not something that you can conceive of, right? It's not like spiritual or godly, or like you may think of as, divine, just some shit you can't fathom, right? And so to me, they're almost completely juxtaposed. And here you've got the Buddha, who is a guy who came to a realization that made a difference in how people live their lives. And Adonai is just something our brains aren't equipped to handle.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please, Jackie. I was going to call on you next
Yeah,
anyway.
So
please.
Rebecca, what I heard you say was Buddha was some guy, a human being. And I think for me, the point of this whole conversation is that there is no Buddha guy. There is no Buddha human being. It's a Buddha nature. It's within all of us. We're all part. The analogy I would use is it's like the ocean. We're all, you can have a glass of water and it flows into the ocean. And I was talking to Lance about this the other day, that where I get wrapped up is in the ego, that, oh my God, does that mean when I die, I'm going to lose my individuality? Does that mean I'm no longer going to be me? I'm going to be part of this mass universe. Yeah. And, and Lance was saying, well, that's ego. So that's the part that I have a hard time wrapping my brain around, because my ego doesn't want to let go of the fact that I'm an individual. But, I think Buddha is a way. I think, Lance, you said it earlier. It's not like a structured religion. It's a way of living. It's a practice.
Right. So, and my conflict, just to be clear, is not with Buddhism. It's just trying to make Buddhism and Judaism overlap in any way. Right. I feel very much, I get that I have a Buddha nature. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. I am totally on board with that part. It's just anytime that we try to make the Buddha and Adonai touch.
Well, let me back up just a second, because I think you really said something that's very important. You said, if I can paraphrase, you said that Adonai is something that is non-conceptual, right?
It is something that we are not capable of understanding.
Correct. Okay. And that's exactly what Buddha nature is.
So there's a parallel.
Yeah, except that, look, so we can take it in simple terms and find a way to shoehorn them together, but my understanding of Adonai is not that.
Well, that's because
right.
that's because of our preconceived ideas and so on. And we're trying to bring those two kinds of cultures together or something like that. But is there something that is invisible to us that we can't identify that says it's all the same? And that's what we're looking for.
Why do we need to have that? See, and this is the part where I get annoying, but it's a Jewish thing. Israel means wrestles with God, right? If I'm in a room with myself, there's a fight going on because there are at least 3 opinions going on. So that's just a thing. But Lance, there's no problem here, except trying to make them fit for me.
Well, then don't make them fit.
I'm perfectly comfortable going, okay, that's that thing I do down the road over there with the Jews. And that's my community. Those are my people. I teach their kids. I like their morals. I like participating in a community. That was before the the Dharma Center was over on 123 because if I found that first, I would have come there first, but it wasn't there. And
so what we're trying to do, we're trying to conceptualize that which cannot be conceptualized.
Rebecca, you see them as separate things. Are they in conflict? Does one interfere?
well, they're just not. I mean, like I said, it's like an orange in my Subaru. They're
But if they're not in conflict, if your orange doesn't interfere with your Subaru,
exactly.
so there's not a problem. I don't think. I don't see it.
Right. The only place that I run into trouble is when we try to make them fit together.
Okay.
Who's
Well,
trying?
And I don't feel a need to make them fit together. So
Okay.
like I'm good.
Jackie, what were you going to say?
So who's trying to make them fit together?
well, at times Lance has drawn parallels, and I've been comforted by those, but I don't think he's.
But I draw parallels with this. Like this does. I love this discussion tonight because I draw parallels between Buddha nature. I draw it with the law of attraction, with with various religions and philosophies, with landmark education. Even when you go back and start talking about as human beings, we're the ones that create meaning. So I think everything is kind of parallel. They're just different facets of the same thing.
Let me go back to something you said, Jackie, that I've been pondering. You don't want to give up your individualism or the fact that you are an individual. I don't want you to either, because I don't want to give up mine. Lance, does she have to give up her individualism to be a Buddhist? Or is that
The short answer? The short answer is yes.
Yeah, because if I'm a glass of
Because
water,
that's the thing that we're holding on to is our individualism, and that becomes our trap.
Is all individualism ego driven?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
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 All right.
if I'm a glass of water and you dump me in the ocean, can I ever get that exact glass of water back? We're all part of the ocean.
That's right.
Well-
From that point of view, yeah. And I think we have to separate two ideas here, and that is sometimes we're comparing men to men.
Mhm.
Buddha as a man to Jesus as a man, or to any of the other, great beings who were great leaders of great religious traditions or something like that, but then there is this essence that is the commonality, is the thread that is woven in each of those men, that is woven in each of us, women, that is all men and women are the same. When we say men, I'm talking about men and women. So, and that's the essence. That's the unspoken. That's the inability to speak. That's the non-conceptual, that essence that brings it all together. We talk about the holy enlightened mind. What the holy enlightened mind is loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Equanimity means sameness. Joy is being able to enjoy all this, to recognize all this and be joyful in this at whatever level you're coming at it. And then the wisdom and the compassion, or the loving kindness, is the wisdom, understanding the intellectualization of it. And then the compassion is the manifestation of that wisdom in the way of works, in the way of helping others, the method to be able to help each other and so on. It was one thing for the Buddha Shakyamuni or Jesus Christ or Moses or anything to have these ideas, but then it was another thing to be able to help people recognize these things for themselves. And that's the compassion. But there's that spiritual thread, there's that essence.
We should probably let some other people in. There've been 4 of us kind of dominating this.
Well, now I want to ask Kate. Kate, what do you have to what do you think about this conversation?
What was the original question?
This
Is it Buddha nature? What
What
is
do you
Buddha
think
nature?
about what do you think about Buddha nature? What do you think about primordial? What do you think about prayer? What do you think about
Primordial.
intellectualization? All these things.
I do want to say that I printed off the correct prayer book, so
Oh, okay, good.
that won't happen again.
Oh, that's okay,
Um,
no problem.
Primordial nature, Buddha nature. Is that also Mahamudra? Is that what?
Mahamudra is the mind, the enlightened mind.
Okay, so we're talking beyond that, correct?
Well, we don't want to get lost in the philosophy of the Buddhism right now. You know, we want to keep it open, you know, and there's be plenty of time to talk about Mahamudra another time.
So
But
I think
that's the mind. That's the mind of what that is. When we achieve Mahamudra, we're saying that we achieve enlightenment. We achieve the realization of being Buddha or Christ, or seeing that equanimity, seeing that holy enlightened mind all together is Mahamudra.
so. You're asking my opinion on what is Buddha nature?
Well, I'm asking you, do
Primordial.
you have any comment about it? That's all.
I believe we're all the same. I have many, many opinions and thoughts and ideas. I'm just trying to, like, I wrote down collective consciousness. I believe that's real, and I believe that even it's been said, when you meditate, you're all one mind. And I think that there is a level of common intelligence that we are able to achieve in those meditation states, and we're able to receive absolute truthful answers when you're in that meditative, that mind flow, that flow state where everything just kind of calms down at that serenity. Sometimes it's flashes, sometimes it's moments. I like the
mentioned
heart thoughts, because I absolutely know that the monkey mind is real. I feel like I'm a living embodiment of the monkey mind. And getting to that meditative heart thought level is very challenging, especially with, I think there's also a trade-off with what you have to give up in order to achieve that state. Because I think the more analytical one can be with this, then even the more you can be lost in it and go down different rabbit holes, because especially from what I've seen and read about, you can take many different paths. You can go many different ways and study many different things within Buddhism. So then trying to simplify all of that down to meditation to get to the Buddha nature, I think is important. And that's what I'm currently trying to do, to make it every waking moment be in the Buddha nature. But then can you really do that? Can you really truly do that? Because then ego is actually involved, because we are human. We do have a human body. And I believe with a human body, there comes that dualism, because we're human. Every atom of our being wants to live, wants to be here in the now. So anyway, yes, I agree.
So can
And
can we become a living Buddha? Let me
I
ask,
would like to think so. I would like to think so. I've asked Khenpo Samdut Rinpoche that very question. Is that even possible? Or when we reach that level of enlightenment, that level of attainment, can our bodies even handle that? Because I'm sure you take in more energy with that absolute truth awareness, enlightenment state. but then that's getting into a whole nother level of discussion as well. So
Earlier, I
I
mentioned
don't
that.
know.
Earlier, I mentioned that at any time in our lives, as a young person, old person, no matter who we are, we're already spiritual beings. Have you ever had some kind of an epiphany? Have you ever had an experience that may have been only like a finger click, but something that brought some clarity to you for a time that you can recall, that
Absolutely.
your life turns
Yeah,
on?
there is no, well, so there is, I don't think there is emptiness. I think we're all connected. I think we're absolutely all connected. And I think we create these veils and these walls. I absolutely think we can have mind-to-mind communication, that you can communicate with your heart. I think that's how we are supposed to be. Yes. And I think for whatever reason, however it happened, it has happened where we have cut and distanced ourselves from one another because we are, and that's including the planet we're on. We are directly from the stars. We are directly from the planet. We are directly made from nature. So to separate ourselves from it and to say that we aren't connected is to deny the very essence of who we are. So I know we can get there, whether we choose to do it or not. We're already there. I'll say that we're already there. We just refuse to acknowledge it and refuse to see it for whatever reason. And that's all. Hopefully we'll get there, right? Yes.
Very good. We'll talk about those very things more. But but I'm talking, like an epiphany. Is anybody, maybe it's like when you look in your infant's eyes, and you connect with your infant first time, or something like that, or maybe you're sitting on a lake.
I thought something, and my daughter's answered
had
it.
some kind of a visceral, experience, that was beyond being a human being. That there was a spiritual connection. Maybe it was, making love. Maybe it was fishing, on a lake or something. It could have been something just very everyday, but at the same time, there was a connection point that kind of just exploded, just kind of, opened up.
Lance, leading off that question, sorry, I had to get boot off to a new device for the signal, but I experienced that almost daily. Well, I know we call them glimpses, but in nature, where I'll stop and I'll see something spectacular, like an earthworm crawling, a leaf falling, the sunlight, or a raindrop, and I'll literally stand there for like 30 seconds and be like, this is it right here.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to describe it. I don't know if anyone else can relate to what I'm describing, where there's something in nature and you're like, holy cow, it's all about this, but it's very brief and it's like a 30-second, and then your phone rings and you're like, oh, back to the real world.
Right.
That's how I know what you're talking about in that way.
Right.
In the physical environment, like when I'm outside and green.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I don't want, go ahead, Vanessa.
Also, yeah, I was gonna say I have the same experiences, and I would say, if I do meditate in the morning and say it's not a day that I'm working, and I take a walk and it's a beautiful day, then I have similar experiences where you do feel connected to, the universe that we're in, basically. Right? It's the same connection to other beings, and it could also be that you're just going to grab a coffee and you're talking to the person behind the counter, and you just have that connection because you're feeling in the moment with that person. So I do experience similar things as you are experiencing, Zara, that to me like bring me back. But it's when it's almost like that's where meditation helps you, I think, being in the present moment and being more aware of that life force in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, well said.
I don't want to leave. Tom hasn't mentioned anything, and Bhavani is in out of the picture, but I'm sure she's sitting right there. And Michael has only said a couple of sentences or something, so I want to give everybody a chance to speak if they would like to. So, Bonnie, do you have anything you want to add to the conversation? She's always got wisdom.
Lance, my wisdom has been falling in and out of sleep.
Oh.
The last night, and I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's
In
okay.
and out of sleep. But yeah, I heard a little bit of the most recent conversation. And I think it was about 40 years ago, I worked in a place that was right next to a state park. And every day at lunchtime, I'd go for a walk on one of the hiking trails there. And the first thing I did when I stepped into that park, I chanted Om 3 times. And the park just became alive. I heard the birds, I heard the trees and the leaves rustling. I heard the insects and the wind. And it was like we became one with each other. And I think that's what is being talked about here. That is that connection. That is reaching our Buddha nature. That's becoming one with everything.
Yeah, your body, speech, and mind, the vibration was
Yes.
the same vibration as the nature, and it just opened up. Your
Exactly.
awareness opened up.
We became one. It was beautiful. I look forward to that every day, to just go there and commune with nature.
Sure. It's like what Zara was talking about and Vanessa was talking about when you're out on a simple nature walk and you just stop and you're amazed at, some simple thing. Tom, how about you? You haven't said anything tonight?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm just having a hard time letting go, all the preconceptions, the agendas and the preconceived notions, I guess once I learn to let those things go, then I will know. But until then, I'm still looking. Mm-hmm.
Tom, I was going to ask, since the conversation is more open dialogue, I wanted to organically ask you a question because you grew up with this part of you from childhood, right? This philosophy and these practices were part of routines in your life, correct? Like meditation at a young age?
Well, yeah, both my parents were Buddhist. I was born and raised in Korea, so yeah, that's all. That's the only philosophy that I've known.
And so did you start meditating at a young age and engaging in certain aspects of the things that we're encouraged to do now at a very young age?
Sure. As a child, we used to spend weeks, months up in the monasteries and the mountains with my mother and stuff.
I'm curious, would you tell us like one thing you're struggling with as a preconceived notion? Only because like it's interesting to know your background from early childhood, like, you know what I mean? Where the innocence of youth, where you have fewer preconceived notions with the environment yet, like with the social conditioning. What is something that you struggle with? If you're willing to share in this group, if you're not, you can say pass.
There's a lot of things. Like I said, I'm just letting go of all these things that I think are, because Buddhism is about others. It's about living for others, for caring for others, for putting others before yourself. And a lot of times, I'm a person. I have an ego, pride, just like everybody else. And that's a hard thing to let go of, But, it's a daily struggle, That's why we meditate. That's why we listen to teachings, That's why we listen to the Sangha. You know, the Sangha is the community of people that surrounds us. Yeah, it gives us strength. It gives us purpose. You know, it gives us a reason for things. You know, and it's like I said. I honestly I don't know. I don't know. I'm just still. I'm still a beginner. You know, and it's a journey. You know, and then in our next lives we'll all be connected again, and all our paths will cross again. You know, because our paths have crossed before.
Can I use the analogy? Have we been programmed?
Oh, certainly.
And can we be reprogrammed?
Of
Can
course.
we, as long as we are breathing, are we programmed material? And we have to control the program. You know, so do we reform or transform ourselves into something that we want to be? And if we have an object, an ideal of you know, a Buddha or whatever you want to say, you know, as our object, something to work for, something to work towards, to measure ourselves against, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
That's a wonderful.
Can I say,
Sure.
are you asking about an experience where it confirmed Buddha nature for you?
I'm not.
Is that-
I'm asking about, can we change ourselves into a new lifestyle, so to speak? You know,
yes.
with a different purpose, or maybe with a purpose that we didn't have before. You know, maybe is the better way to say it.
100%.
You
Yes.
know, and that's what we need to do, because we'll have our ego no matter what we do. We'll have our dualistic mind no matter what we do. But the point here is to be able to learn how to control it, to control our mind, you know, to control this mind through this mind. This is the big mind. This is that spiritual mind. This is that Buddha mind, to be able to control and be able to order this, which then makes our body feel better and is in better condition and so on. Live healthier, live longer.
Lance, so maybe I sleep a little better tonight if we could touch one more time on this individuality and ego thing. And I may be using Rebecca's orange and Subaru. I mean, I may be talking about two different things, but this, to me, the beauty of humanity is we're all in it together, but we are individual. I mean, this conversation tonight, I mean, people have done a lot of things I wouldn't have thought of. And I suppose when they do that, they think, you know, this is a good idea that I have. I suppose there's an ego angle of that, but I don't, Rebecca, stop laughing. I don't want to give that up. I mean, now what am I confusing? I mean, what's the orange and what's the Subaru here? I mean,
Well, number one, I don't think you have to give it up, you know, but I don't think we attach to it, nor do we have an aversion to it. It just becomes, we now begin to understand our human nature instead of our human nature controlling us.
Okay, but when I asked you if Jackie had to give up her individuality, I thought you said short answer, yes.
Ultimately, that's what we do, isn't it, when we die? And, you know, what do you, and we become, wait a minute, this is an important point. You know, do we exist?
Oh, here's Michael again. Michael.
Do we exist? And what do we exist as if we do exist? And what is it that is something that is beyond our what we call existence? You know, here, like you just pointed out, you know, there's 10 people here, however many people are here right now. And like you just said, we're all bonded together, or we've all come together, to express these ideas and so on. But yet there's this individualistic way in which we're doing it. Is there this commonality between us all? Is there this thread that is between us all that goes beyond just us here right now, but includes everybody and everything? Is there something else there too? So that's the Buddha nature. That's what we're trying to see. The awakened one sees that, also sees what we're trying to do, also sees the human nature, but is not bound by it. Is not bound by it. There's many ways to talk about this, and there's not enough time to get into it, but we'll see how it is that we keep making choices based on our being bound to the result. We want to have the ego. We want to have this possession. We want to have this body. And what is it that's making us do that? That's what we need to let go of.
Okay, that helps. Thanks.
Michael, did you want to say something?
I just try to walk through life knowing, being as present as I can in this very moment. Keep reminding myself that the past doesn't exist and the future is not promised, and so life is as it is just happening right here and right now. And even though I walk through this relative reality that we share, this sort of cooperative hallucination that we've built for ourselves, I think what we're all trying to do is know to the utmost extent that the six senses that we have are our only sources of information, and the six senses that we have block us off from a magnificent expanse of love and compassion and dynamics that we can incline ourselves to. We can point to things like the Mahamudra and emptiness, but we're not able to conceive that. So that's the struggle people have. I think that's the struggle that I have. But if I can walk through this conceptual world, reminding myself that this moment is a representative of all that I have, and that I'm limited, but beyond my limits, like as William would say, we're all one. It's all the same thing. All phenomenal life, all phenomena is just stuff swimming in the same ocean of space. And there's nothing to separate it. There's nothing really to separate us but our ideas about self. And so I try to keep that in mind as I walk through life. And then, like Zara, then I get to take the moment, and I get to be in awe about an earthworm. And I get to be in awe just by thinking about an earthworm. And then I get to be in awe of the magnificence of the moment. Like Thich Nhat Hanh said, this very moment is the miracle. This very moment that's never happened before and never will happen again, with us being in this space, talking about these things, and having all of the causes and conditions that from the beginning of time that has actually blown us here, like the karmic winds that's delivered us here into this moment. Just knowing that, or grasping that, the magnificence of that, brings me satisfaction.
Well said. Thank you very much.
Lance, if you give a little bit of thought to this here. If you gain a little bit of control over your mind and you lose your ego, you can use that ego that you've lost, quote unquote, or given away. You can use that ego as a tool to work with whatever your concepts are.
Yes, that's the Vajrayana. That's the Vajrayana. That's the doctor analogy. You know, if we realize that we have an illness, we go to the hospital. We isolate ourselves. We don't contaminate others. And then the nurses come in and take care of us and show us love and devotion and compassion and help us and make sure that we get our medications that we need and so on like that. But then the doctor comes in who has the wisdom to know what the medicine should be for you. You know? So that's the ego under control, who now knows how to operate within the hospital, within these confines and so on. So this idea that we put together and so on, we see that it's all just conceptual, but it's how we, as human beings, as part of our human nature. But as Buddha nature, we are all things, all one, we are all pure. It's all perfect. There's no negativity, there's no positivity. There's no non-virtue, there's no virtue. It's all on the path, so to speak. That's to be a Buddha. So I thank you all very much for hanging in here and contributing to this and listening to this and thinking about this. I think it's really, really good. What we're going to do, because we have several people who are relatively new to Buddhism, and I think it's only fair, Buddhism 101 is designed for beginners, and we're all beginners at one level or another, but beginners to come and be able to learn and appreciate the very fundamentals of what the philosophy is and so on, learn the vocabulary. So what we're going to do is we're going to start next week with Buddhism 101 with the textbook called The Jewel Ornamental Liberation, which is the core book of our tradition. It is called a Lam Rim text in Sanskrit. Lam Rim means stages of the path. Stages of the path. So if you want to purchase the book, you can get it online. Amazon has, I checked it yesterday or the day before, and they've got copies. You might not be able to get a brand new copy, but they do have some very good used copies and so on. So I will also send an outline each week for each chapter that we do. And sometimes we'll have to spend a week or two talking about a particular chapter. But if everybody would like that, that's what we'll do. And then we're going to continue learning Buddhism, what the book that we're working, we're going to shift that over to Saturday nights. And that'll be like Buddhism 102. So 101 will be Monday night. 102 will go to be Saturday night. And then on Friday nights in May, we're going to start the popular name is the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or the Bardo Todal, as it's called in Tibetan, which is a core book of Vajrayana Buddhism. And I don't have time to go into all the detail about that. We'll talk about it soon. So you have time to, decide if you want to join that. We're going to do a study group. And that study group is going to go on, for as long as people want to participate and so on. So those are the changes. The big change is to start Buddhism 101 over again. So I think, will you appreciate that? Is that a good idea? I mean, anybody, what do you think? Okay.
Yes, please and thank you.
Okay. All right, great. So then we'll do that. A number of the people who are with us tonight have been through Buddhism 101 3, 4, 5 times for years. I've been teaching this for 15 years. And it is a cycle that we go through all the time, because if we don't get the fundamentals right, all the stuff at the upper level stuff just starts getting like mush. It just, it just gets too confusing. You got to get the fundamentals. So we're going to get back and talk about the Buddhism 101.
But
Okay?
what's the name of the book again?
The Jewel Ornament of Liberation. And I'll send an email tomorrow or maybe Wednesday. Tomorrow I got a trip I got to take. And but I'll send an email, and so everybody has a chance to get it in time.
Okay, thank you.
There it is.
Lance, are you this Saturday, is it going to be film night, or are you switching to 102 this Saturday?
This Saturday night is going to be a film night.
Okay.
This is going to be a film night. And the next couple of Saturdays, actually, no. Thank you for reminding me. This Saturday happens to be a big event with Garchen Rinpoche.
Okay.
And so it's going to run into our time. So we're going to have to cancel this Saturday night for the film night. But then the next 2 weeks after that, we're going to have some films. And I'll send an email out to everybody.
Okay.
I've got everybody's email address. You should have mine. If you want this book, you should send me your email, and so that I can send you a copy, and also that I can include you in the email and send the outlines to you. And there was one other thing I wanted to say. But Thursday night, we're going to do Medicine Buddha. Friday night, we're going to do Refuge Prostration. We're going to talk about Nundro. We're going to continue talking about Nundro for a couple of weeks. And then we're going to switch that to Tibetan Book of the Dead. So some changes, but they're good changes. We got some beginners, we got some people who have gotten a little further along, and we need to keep everybody interested and challenged, so to speak.
Lance, what Medicine Buddha, can you just quickly tell me what that entails?
Medicine Buddha is the Buddha of healing.
I don't understand.
We're all sick.
Okay.
Got that, right? Yeah.
That sounds great, Ed, for us.
And we need to get healed.
Okay.
So whether it's bodily illnesses or it's mental illnesses or spiritual illnesses, we have to recognize the causes of those illnesses, and we have to bring up the wisdom that is within each one of ourselves. Medicine Buddha is within us all. And we need to be able to recognize that. So we recognize that through these practices. We recognize that all this wisdom is within ourselves. So Medicine Buddha brings the healing for those illnesses.
Does that require a textbook? Is there a meditation? Oh, it does. Okay. And is there a meditation component where it's group meditation?
Yes.
Okay. Is that one? Is that I don't know if I have that email. I'm sorry. I'll go back and retrieve. I'll go look.
Well, send me an email, and I'll send you the book. That you can print yourself. Can you print?
I think so. This morning it worked.
Okay, good. That's a short little booklet that we use, and I can send that to you. And you have the Deity Yoga book, but this is a little bit of a expanded version of the one that's in the Deity Yoga book that you'll enjoy. And everybody, so Thursday night, that's what we do is as an actual practice for 2 hours. And you're welcome. Everybody's welcome to join us for that. So
You're a busy guy.
it's the best thing I got to do. All of us. What's better? You know, that's I love it. You know, we all love it. It's good stuff. All right. So any other quick questions, procedure questions, or anybody need any information? Okay. All right. The last thing we need to do is our dedication. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to recite the dedication. It's in our prayer book on page 20. It's a short one. So this is called the Dicorma Prayer. And so we're dedicating now all the wisdom and merit that we just acquired through listening, through thinking, the thoughts that we said and everything. All this, we're different people than we were 2 hours ago by virtue of this conversation. So now we're taking that merit and we're dedicating it to the enlightenment of other beings. We're not holding on to it. We're not feeding our ego. We're turning it around and we're giving it to everybody. So this is the dedication that we do at the end of a teaching or a practice. So we say, by the virtues collected in the 3 times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Dicorma Ratna Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. In my body, speech, and mind may become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. Thank you all very much. I really do appreciate it. I love you all. Thank you.